Hi. So now that we have covered metrics, KPIs, and have seen some of the examples, it's about time to look at some of the frameworks that you can employ to use metrics and to use metrics very effectively. So I'll begin with one of the most popular frameworks, which is HART and AARRR or R. Uh, it's also called Pirate Metrics. It was coined by Dave McClure of 500 Startups. So let's deep dive. So, what is HART and how is it HART measured, right? So, HART is something is a framework that was proposed by Google Ventures. HART stands for, it's an abbreviation for H for happiness, E for engagement, A for adoption, R for retention, and T for task success. Okay. So happiness is basically how happy is the user with the product, and users perceive the product as easy to use and are likely to recommend. So it's a quantitative metric and can be measured via NPS or simple surveys. E stands for engagement. How engaged are the users? How frequently do they use your product? You rely on data analytics suite like Google Analytics to discover this. For example, visits per session, search per session, and so on. A stands for adoption. The percent of users who adopt your product after signing up. So that is user onboarding and then use the product or a feature, which is feature adoption. You measure this also via analytics. R stands for retention, that is the percent of users who came back after the first session to use the product. You measure this also via analytics. And finally, T stands for task success. How successful was the user in doing the task he used the product for? How long did he take and what was the error rate? You measure this via user surveys. Now, as you can see in this diagram, I've just listed out what each of these metric measures and how it can be measured. Moving along, an important framework that I would recommend is HART on the row and GSM, which is goals, signals, and metrics on the column side. If you do this and if you analyze your product using this HART on the left and GSM on the top, it will help you exactly identify what are the happiness goals, what are the engagement goals, what are the adoption goals, what are the retention goals, what are the task success goals, and that will help you quantify your metrics in a much better way, right? So in the example shared in this in on this page, uh, you can see, for example, happiness goal is customer is satisfied with checkout process on app and all orders get delivered. That is the goal. What are the signals? The signals could be app store rating, Google Play Store rating, and the rating should improve every month. That's the metric that we would like to track, right? The rating should improve every month. So that is what is the rate of increase, or maybe what is the uh, average rating per month. Then the engagement goal is increase the number of orders and total value of each orders. So signal would be the number of orders per customer and average basket value per customer. The metric can be tracked by saying average order per customer per month and average basket value per customer per month, right? And as you go along, you can actually create a very good goals, signals, and metrics for each of these important parameters, which is happiness, engagement, adoption, retention, and task success. This is another very good example which I took from internet. So happiness is connected with user attitudes. You can do it, you can measure it using surveys, satisfaction surveys, right? And it NPS, and it kind of indicates the ease of use, right? Goals are very high level objectives, and signals are success or failure in goals mapped to user behavior or attitudes. And finally, metrics you will refine further and you will track over time, right? It is used for comparison. Another important so there's another example that I would like to state here of happiness of heart and GSM. So happiness goal, for example, for this product called Usabilia is that our clients feel even more satisfied and secure using our products. So what is a signal? Positive feedback when we ask our users about the feature in the form of a survey. Metric is the percentage of our client base that feels more satisfied and secure after enabling the feature, right? Engagement is maybe not involved, not required for this particular product, and so on. I'll recommend that you please go through this, and there are plenty of literature available online. We would be sharing some of this literature as post reading material as well. Please go through that. Another very popular framework, which is R, is known as Pirate Metrics and was proposed by Dave McClure of 500 Startups. So Pirate Metrics and Heart framework, you essentially have the same message. Okay, let's understand what's our framework all about. And there's a link in the speaker notes where you can read a little more about Pirate Metrics. So A stands for acquire. How are you getting the users? Okay. So how do users become aware of you? SEO, SEM, widgets, email, PR campaigns, blogs, etc., etc. Activate. Activate stands for A stands for activate. So are the users getting a great onboarding experience? Are they using a feature of the product? That is, are they immediately doing some action? Are they taking some action on your platform? So they landed on your website. Did they like it? Did they subscribe? Did they not subscribe? What happened? So features, design, tone, compensation, affirmation, all of these things matter. Then retention or retain. R stands for that. Are they coming back? And how frequently are they coming back? So does a one-time user become engaged? So notifications, alerts, reminders, these are all methods of engaging or keeping the person retained. Then comes revenue, which is how are you monetizing it? Do you make money from the user actively? Now this revenue could be may not be applicable for you if you're not a money if you're not monetizing already, in which case you would be tracking something else like the number of page views if at all you are still in 90s, or the number of users who are signing up, something, right? And then refer. So is your product so good that your users are talking about? So do users promote your product? And that is where the email, widgets, campaigns, etc. will help you in getting the referral going for you, right? So once again, what is R and what you should track? So acquisition, the function is to generate attention through a variety of means, both organic and inorganic. The relevant metrics would be traffic, mentions, cost per click, search results, cost of acquisition, open rate, etc. Activation is turn the resulting drive-by visitors into users who are somehow enrolled. And the enrollment, sign up, completed onboarding process, etc. are metrics which are relevant to activation. Similarly, there is retention. You convince the users to come back repeatedly. The relevant metrics is engagement. You will define some specific KPI to measure that engagement. Time since last visit, daily and monthly active users, churns, etc. Then the revenue, and then finally referral. So to give you an idea, so generally speaking, our framework offers you 5 means of measuring the customer life cycle. Here's a simple example. A website is getting 1,000 visitors per month. That is the acquisition. And its activation conversion is 70%. So that they are getting nearly 700 users per month. Only 20% of 700 users will return after first visit. That is retention. From 20%, which is about 140 users, only 10% are paying revenue or they are paying customers. And out of these 14 users, uh, nearly 10% of all visitors will tell their friends about that website. So you're talking about 10% as a referral. It means the site has a good activation rate of 70%, which means they're exploring a real problem and have a working solution. Also, they have a very convincing landing page. In order to increase signups, they search ways to improve acquisition by adding more acquisition channels or try to attract more users working on SEO. Their retention is only 20%, so they develop some new features like email newsletters, white papers, gamification to return users. Then they understand that users are not coming back because the service doesn't solve users' problem or customers don't know how to use it. In which case, site owners make easy to understand guides to help users. The process of converting users into paying customers, which is revenue, uh, is the next thing to tackle. In order to increase it, the company adapts its pricing policies, improves the client communication process, and takes other steps to convince users to buy, thus becoming customers. And finally, they check why their service is not being recommended to increase the number of referrals. The goal is to make customers like the product enough to recommend it to others, right? So this is how you'll typically do a drill down. This is very very high level, but essentially they should give you a good direction. That divide all the activities into these buckets and then work on uh, and then work on uh, measuring what to do. So Eric Ries in Lean Startup talks about three engines that drive the growth of a startup. Each of these has associated key performance indicators or KPIs. So first is sticky engine. The sticky engine focuses on getting users to return and to keep using your product. It's very similar to Dave McClure's retention phase. If your users aren't sticky, churn will be high and you won't have engagement. Engagement is one of the best predictors of success. Facebook's early user counts weren't huge, but the company could get nearly all students in a university to use the product and to keep coming back within a few months of launch. Facebook's stickiness was off the charts. And if you listen to Reid Hoffman's Master of Scale podcast, he specifically mentions about this, that they were not blown away by Zuckerberg's presentation or the pitch, but they were completely blown away by the stickiness of Facebook, the way it was taking off. The fundamental KPI for stickiness is customer retention. Churn rates and usage frequency are other important metrics to track. Long-term stickiness often comes from the value users create for themselves as they use the product. It's hard for people to leave Gmail or Evernote because, well, that's where they store all their stuff. Similarly, if a player deletes his account from a massively multiplayer online game, he loses all his status and in-game items, which he has worked hard to earn. Stickiness isn't only about retention, it's also about frequency, which is why you also need to track metrics like time since last visit. If you have methods of driving return visits such as email notification or updates, then email open rates and click through rates matter too. The next engine that Eric Rice proposes or suggests that we should be focusing on is virality engine. So virality is all about getting the word out. Virality is attractive because it compounds. If every user adds another 1.5 users, your user base will grow infinitely until you have saturated all users. The assumption being that users are within the target audience of your product. The key metric for this engine is the viral coefficient, the number of new users that each user brings on. Because this is compounding, the users they bring in turn brings their own users. The metric measures how many users are brought in with each viral cycle. Growth comes from a viral coefficient of greater than 1, but you also have to factor in churn and loss. The bigger the coefficient, the faster you grow. Measuring viral coefficient isn't enough. You also need to measure the actions that make up the cycle. For example, when you join most social networks, you are asked to connect to your email account to find contacts. Then you are given the option to invite them. They receive emails which they might act upon. Those distinct stages all contribute to virality. So measuring actions is how you tweak the viral engine by changing the message, simplifying the sign up process, and so on. There are other factors at play with virality as well, including the speed with which a user invites another, so which is known as the viral cycle time, and the type of virality. We will dive into these later in the tutorial. The third engine is a paid engine, which is which is payments, and which is very similar to what Dave McClure calls revenue stage or revenue bucket. It's usually premature to turn this engine on before you know that your product is sticky and viral. Meteor Entertainment's Hawkin is a multiplayer game that's free to play, but it makes money from in game upgrades. Meteor is focusing on usage within a beta group first, which is stickiness, and then working on virality, inviting your friends to play, and finally payment, which is players buying upgrades. I'm sorry. players buying upgrades to become competitive or enhance the in-game experience. Getting paid is in some ways the ultimate metric for identifying a sustainable business model. If you make more money from customers than it costs you to acquire them and you do so consistently, you are sustainable. You don't need money from external investors and you're growing shareholder equity every day. But getting paid on its own isn't an engine of growth. It's just a way to put money in the bank. Revenue helps growth only when you funnel some of the money generated from revenue back into acquisition. Then you have a machine that you can tune to grow the business over time. The two knobs on the machine are customer lifetime value, which is CLV or lifetime value LTV, and customer acquisition cost, which is CAC. Making more money from customers than you spend acquiring them is good, but the equation for success isn't that simple. You still need to worry about cash flow and growth rate, which are driven by how long it takes a customer to pay off. One way to measure this is time to customer break even. That is how much time it will take to recoup the acquisition cost of a customer. So these are some of the things that you need to worry about. These frameworks um, are great, but I will suggest that you need to practice applying this in many examples. Only then you will get a sense of it. Okay, theoretically they are relatively simple to understand, but only when you practice it you will get a good hold of it. Uh, There are some more frameworks, and one of them I would like to mention is Lean Canvas. So, unlike a traditional business plan, you should use and update the Lean Canvas continuously. It's a living, breathing plan. I'm just jumping ahead because Lean Canvas is a pretty popular construct. It's a living, breathing plan, not a hypothetical tome of nonsense that you throw out the minute you start actually working on a startup. Once you have filled out the Lean Canvas and a link to the Lean Canvas uh, is in the post reading material, you start running experiments to validate or invalidate what you have hypothesized. In its simplest form, think of each box as a pass or fail. If your experiment fail, you don't go to the next box. Rather, you keep experimenting until you hit a wall completely or get to the next step. The only exception is the key metrics box, which is meant to keep a record of the most important metrics you are tracking. You don't run experiments on this box, but it's important to fill it out anyway because it's definitely open to debate and discussion, right? So, what are the lean canvas boxes? The problem, right? So, respondents who have this, on what do you fill in that? You will fill respondents who have this need, respondents who are aware of having the need. Then the solution, your respondents who try the MVP, engagement churn, most used, last used features, least used features, people willing to pay. This is the metrics that you will track to measure whether the solution is working or not. The unique value proposition, which is feedback scores, independent ratings, sentiment analysis, customer worded descriptions, etc., etc. These are all great for UVP. In fact, a lot of times the testimonial that you will get or the customer worded description that you will get will help you articulate the unique value proposition in a much better way because the customers will be using language which is devoid of all marketing jargons and will be much more nearer to what the customer perceives the product to be doing. Then there is customer segments, which is how easy it is to find group of prospects, unique keyword segments, targeted funnel traffic, and so on. Right. So Lean Canvas is another very good framework to refer to. These are all different frameworks, and you can choose to use any one of them or all of them. It's completely up to you. But I'll suggest to start very simple and very small in the beginning, and only then slowly scale up. And there's this one more, which is growth pyramid. Okay. Sean Ellis has a very interesting theory about uh, product market fit. Uh, and Sean Ellis is a very popular guy. I'll suggest you to Google him. Um, he has been behind the growth of some of the largest companies in the country, in the world. So Sean Ellis uh, believes that to identify product market fit, because only then you can actually start attacking growth. He has a very simple suggestion, and that is send a survey to the customers, to all your current users, with this simple one question survey, which says, "How would you feel if you could no longer use this product?" If and the options are very disappointed, somewhat disappointed, not disappointed, and not applicable. I no longer use this product. If 40% or more are very disappointed, you have a product market fit already. Okay. So his theory is that you need to first, in the growth pyramid, the baseline is product market fit. If you have the product market fit, only then you should invest or you should figure out how to scale. So once you have product market fit, then you stack the odds. Basically, now you have to find a defensible, unfair advantage and tweak it. And once you have stacked the odds, then you scale the growth. Basically, step on the gas in new markets, products, and channels. That's how it works. So many frameworks. What to do? I will suggest just follow common sense. Okay, don't go overboard. Don't try to showcase multiple frameworks, this and that. Just pick one framework and just go with it. Okay, keep it simple, get a hang of it, and then add another metric if needed. Just don't jump into that I'm going to track 10 metrics and across three different frameworks and I'll be super data super data driven and things like that. Being data driven is important, but that can only happen if you're sane. When you have multiple metrics across multiple frameworks, it will become nightmare to update them, and you will not be able to derive any kind of insights, because deriving insights will require their own time, right? So just follow a single framework at a time and realize that everything is mutating. Your metrics dashboard should be updated frequently as well, till you find no reason to update. Frequency should be at least three times your experiment length. So if your experiment is let's say 1 month long, then you should be typically be updating your framework or your metrics dashboard at least every 3 months. When I say update the frameworks, the metrics dashboard, what I mean is update the parameters of the metrics itself. At least have a relook at the metrics, whether they are still making sense, whether they're still relevant or not. Okay. In the speaker notes, I've added some more links, a whole bunch of links, which you should definitely go through. So to conclude, most of these metrics and these frameworks are very commonsensical. Okay, they're very logically, can be very logically deduced, but they're hard. And to be really good at this, you need to one, gain a lot of experience and have a lot of exposure about different companies, different industries, how exactly they're measuring and so on. And there is no substitute to that except for reading on your own, because the fundamentals have been made very clear now. The only thing that is missing is you sitting down and actually reading up on how big companies are measuring, what are they measuring, how are they measuring, and so on. And just keep reading, and you'll be good. So that's it for now. Take care.